And so now we come to planning the third application on the agenda. The number of the application is 2024/1261. This is an application relating to Alton Airfield, the street Alton. And the papers start at page 44 of the agenda. I'd like to invite the planning officer for this application, Adam Banham, the principal planning officer, to present the application. Thank you.
Hopefully the mic is picking up my voice okay.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. Could I just, Councillor Mia, did you have something? Thank you for declaring your interest. Sorry.
Hopefully the mic is picking up my voice okay. So another solar farm application. The difference with this one is that it's for a variation of condition, as the title explains, to extend the life of the application from 25 to 40 years. The principle of development has been set already by a previous application, 2015-0952. As we would do with any variation of condition, it's a section 73 application, so we would look to retain existing conditions from the original permission where they're relevant. Just to give you some context to the site, it's a countryside location to the west of Aylsham, sandwiched between the conservation areas of Blickling to the northeast and Hayden to the west. RAF Alton was built during the Second World War, and it was known as RAF Alton and was used for heavy bombers. Just to bring you in close to the application site itself, we're looking at a 18.7 hectare piece of land split between the two parcels that you can see there. B1149 runs to the southwest at this distance of 120 metres at the south. Otherwise, the context of this site is countryside with the former airfield runway, large agribusiness buildings, and to the northeast there's residential properties along Alton Street. This is a screenshot of the permitted scheme. As you would have seen from the previous photo, phase one has been built out and was energised in 2016. So if this application was approved, it would then be able to operate until 2056. Phase two of the development, which is in two parts, hasn't yet been built out. If this was energised, then that would be for 40 years if this application was approved from the date of first energisation. I understand from the applicants that they'd be looking to develop phase two fairly quickly, so it'd be more than likely that phase two would be energised next year. This screenshot shows more clearly the development over two phases. As I've said, phase one in pink was energised in 2016 and phase two is yet to be built. Moving to some photos, you can see from the map in the corner of the screen, I've tried to indicate the position of where the photo was taken from by the star. So this photo is taken from the access on Alton Street. This is very busy at the moment because it's an access that's already being used for the Hornsey 3 construction compound. But as to this application, if you look closely, you can just see that the phase one solar panels are visible from Alton Street. This photo takes you into the site. It's taken at a distance of about 300 metres from the phase one solar panels. you can see that the site is screened by trees in the distance, and in the foreground is the concrete roadway which was associated to the former airfield. This is taken up close to the phase 1 scheme, so you can see in addition to the solar panels there's the various pieces of equipment associated to it which sort of stand no more than 1 story high, and then in the foreground you've got the wire fencing which has been used to mark both the phase 1 and the phase 2 land. This is taken looking north at the phase 1 land. There's a field in between the site and the B1149, so views of the phase 1 scheme are very limited, and this is just taken from a gap in the hedgerow. Looking now at the phase 2 land, this photo is taken at the north of the site and looks east. The context again is the trees around the perimeter and the existing farm buildings, and as I said, the site has been marked out with post and wire fencing and is currently just maintained as grass. Looking to the southwest, again you can see existing farm buildings, and just to the right of the photo is the Orsted construction compound. This is a photo just to show you some of the other activity which is going on the site. As many of you will know, the offshore wind farm is under construction and is due to be completed in 2028, and obviously you can see the cabling reels for that development there. Just to help with the wider context, I've overlaid the footprint of the construction compound for Hornsea 3 with the solar farm application. And then when reviewing the consultee comments, I was very conscious of comments from the parish council about the wider impact. These talked about the impact on the neighbouring conservation areas. So on this map you can see the site shown circled red, with the Hayden Conservation Area off to mainly the west and Blickling to the northeast. The nearest point at which the Blickling Conservation is to the site is about 500 metres. And as you would expect, listed buildings are contained within the conservation area designations. In visiting the site, I gave attention to the views from the north. The site is actually very well screened from the public highway, which is Shepherd's Lane and Church Lane. So having climbed through and between various sort of hedgerow and shrubbery, I took these photos. So this is taken from the north, looking south at the site, and then similarly to give you a flavour of the landscape impact, this is taken again from the north but looking southeast, and I've marked on here the approximate position of the phase 2 land. Amongst the other consultee comments, there was a comment about the use of best and most versatile agricultural land, and the dichotomy, I suppose, between energy security and food security. This site comprises 76% grade 3A land and 24% grade 3B land, and the applicant was willing to share for this application their wider land holdings, and in my report you'll note that I give weight to the concept here of diversification of agriculture and other land-based rural businesses. And as you can see, this solar farm is just a relatively modest part of the wider land holding. And there were also some comments from the applicant about the yields from this land being lower than would have naturally been expected given its use classification. Consultee comments focused on the wider implications for the parish of Alton. The parish is undoubtedly making an enormous contribution to the way that the country's energy is being generated. There are two cable routes for offshore wind farms crossing through the parish. As I mentioned, there's also the construction compound for Hornsey 3. And we also have some neighbouring solar farms that have been permitted, and I've marked these in blue on the plan there so you can see them in context just to the south of the site that we're considering today. And then finally, to bring this presentation to conclusion, I just wanted to return to the application that's in question today, which is the variation of the permission 2015-0952, where the principle of development is set and how we are considering the variations to conditions 3 and 5, which would extend the lifespan of the existing permission from 25 to 40 years. That brings me to an end.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And do councillors have any questions for the officer? No? Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to public speaking. We have 2 members of the parish council, I think. Here we have Susan Mather and Alison Shaw. Thank you for coming today. If you could, will you be sharing time together? You have, yeah, lovely. So if you could introduce yourselves when you start to speak, and then you each have, in effect, 5 minutes, so 10 minutes in total. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Susan Mather. I'm Chair of Alton Parish Council. Alton Parish Council are aware that Phase 2 of the Airfield Solar Farm will be constructed, as consent has already been granted for 25 years in 2015 for Phases 1 and 2 and for 10 megawatts of generated power. 25 years would be an end date for Phase 1 of 2041 and Phase 2 2050. Alton Parish Council are objecting to the extension of years from 25 to 40, as it would effectively further remove this site's 76% best and most versatile land from food production. In 2015, 25 years was a temporary solution to the loss of land to food production, after which the land would be returned to its original purpose. The land rested with wildflowers round the perimeter and grazing sheep promised. Some wildflowers may have been established on the Phase 1 site. However, sheep, it turned out, could not safely graze due to earthing issues. It turns out that sheep were at risk of being electrocuted. I bring to the committee's attention that in 2015, solar farms were a fairly new concept, were small in scale and subsidies available. Solar was presented to the local planning authorities as a means to meet the 2020 climate target, and using best and most versatile land would not have an effect on food security. However, later on in 2015, subsidies were withdrawn for solar over 5 megawatts. Phase 2 was not constructed. That same year, the use of high percentages of best and most versatile land began to be discouraged. The new developers submitted Phase 2 into the Contract for Difference auction in 2022 and won funding for 6 megawatts of power. It is noted that your planning officer has mentioned another planning application, 2020-1776, in his report, which Alton Parish Council also highlighted in our response to the application and is next to this site. It was refused permission and was dismissed on appeal in 2021 as it had 71% best and most versatile agricultural land. The planning inspector, in his summary, stated that the impact of the loss of best and most versatile land throughout the lifetime of a proposed development would be a site-specific impact which would bring conflict against development plan policy, while collectively there would be benefits associated with the proposal of considerable and significant weight. The harm that would be caused by allowing development through the loss of best and most versatile land over the lifetime of the development would be of greater significance. Your planning officer has also brought to our attention two planning applications for the previously mentioned appeal site. These were submitted in parallel to the appeal and were granted planning consent. However, what has been omitted in his report is that the solar farm site was redesigned to use a smaller percentage of best and most versatile land, along with using another parcel of land which was not included in the original application. The total amount of best and most versatile land used after the redesign was 50%, a further reduction of 21% from the 71% best and most versatile land in the original application. Only then was it considered acceptable by the planning committee. The concept of temporary planning seems to be used to create a permanency on project sites by stealth. There is nothing to stop 40 years becoming 50. The applicants have not stated how they propose to maintain the capacity output of the solar panels over an extended period of time. The need for food security has not gone away. In fact, it has become more important than in 2015. All that has changed is the need for electricity has just become a better paid option. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Alison Shaw and I'm a councillor on Alton Parish Council. If this application were to be approved today, it would be no skin off my nose. I will be long gone in 25 years, let alone the requested 40-year extension. We have come here today on a matter of planning principle, and we hope that Alton Parish Council's enforced 12-year detailed study of all manner of renewable energy projects will incline you to at least listen to what we have to say. Alton PC has always supported the urgent need for the development and implementation of renewable energy of all kinds, and has indeed become increasingly frustrated, nay horrified, by the outgoing government's utter lack of decisive central strategic planning of this vital transition, which could have been expedited and with far less environmental damage onshore. As you will know, Alton is already hosting main construction compounds of both Ørsted's and Vattenfall's offshore wind projects, and Equinor's will soon be hot on their heels. 6 gigawatts of electricity, equivalent to 5 times the output of Sizewell B, able to power millions of homes, will soon be pouring through Broadland underground. Your district has already ticked the box of make a contribution to net zero many times over. So to the matter in hand. Solar farms at these northern latitudes have a notoriously low load factor, which is their actual output expressed as a percentage of their potential output if the sun shone more strongly and a great deal more often than it does here. The most efficient place for the mass installation of solar panels is the middle of the Sahara Desert. The average load factor for solar PV in the UK last year was 10.5%, which means in terms of this application that although phases A and B together boast of having the potential to generate 10 megawatts of power, they will in fact most probably generate only 10% of that, i.e. a mere 1 megawatt or 1,000 kilowatts. Is this relatively meagre amount of energy worth the sacrifice of over 46 acres of good agricultural land for 40 years? It could be generated much more efficiently via offshore wind, with a current load factor of 45% and no loss of food production whatsoever. This applicant did not take this project through its original planning process in 2015 and has only bought this project in recent years. Now it is attempting to raise its value on paper by gaining permission to extend its lifespan before, most probably, selling it on. The most unedifying part of the new renewables industry is the busy market in trading green projects of all kinds for profit, while developers claim loudly that they are only trying to help save the planet. This claim, however, has opened serious doors to renewable energy projects on their way through the planning process that would never normally have opened for them. And one of those doors is under direct consideration by you here today, namely the balance between the loss of BMV land from food production in exchange for a small and unreliable amount of clean energy from some ground-mounted solar panels. Ulton PC has always maintained that this is a very poor trade-off. But don't take our word for it. I repeat the words of the Planning Inspector in 2021 when he upheld at appeal a decision of this very committee to refuse a similar solar farm in this parish. He said, while collectively there would be some benefits associated with the proposal of considerable and significant weight, the harm that would be caused through the loss of BMV land over the lifetime of the development would be of greater significance. One thing is absolutely certain, and made certain by the very climate change crisis that we are trying to address here, that we are living now in unprecedentedly unpredictable times. As planners, this places a heavy responsibility upon you all, namely to encourage, wherever you can, strategically planned development of renewable energy projects, while at the same time not compromising the flexibility of future generations to be able to make whatever decisions might become necessary many decades down the line in future scenarios which we cannot even imagine. This project already has permission for a perfectly reasonable lifespan of 25 years. There is nothing to prevent the then owners of this project from reapplying at that stage for an extension. I urge you to consider that the future flexibility to make their own planning decisions about such a serious matter as the balance between renewable energy and food security is a right that you can and should give to the future inhabitants of Broadland District. One thing is sure, future generations will always need food, and they can't eat electricity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming to speak. Do councillors on the committee have any questions for our speakers? No? Okay, well, thank you for your time. We also have Rob Gandy to speak here today. Thank you very much for coming. If you have 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when you've got 1 minute left. If you could introduce yourself when you start to speak. Thank you.
Good morning, members. My name is Rob Gandy. I'm the Principal Planning Consultant representing the applicant. The need to urgently reduce carbon emissions to address the impact of climate change is well documented, as is the UK's ever-increasing demand for energy. We welcome the Planning Department's committee report recommending approval for the application being fully compliant with planning policy. The National Policy Statements for Energy and Infrastructure, published in January 2024, sets out the objective of the UK achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050, for which key projects such as this solar farm shall be needed. Within days of the new Labour government, the Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero granted development consent orders to 3 solar-based projects, confirming the national need for such renewable energy schemes outweighed any adverse impacts, including ALC. This emphasises the direction of travel and intent of the UK government in tackling the climate emergency with the urgency that is required. The solar sector is developing rapidly, enabling solar farms to operate much more efficiently and for longer periods. As such, this variation of condition planning application seeks to extend the operational period of the extant solar farm from 25 to 40 years from the date of the first energy exports, as is now industry standard and recognised in the committee report at paragraphs 5.22 and also the previous application heard by the members here today. MPPF paragraph 163 makes clear the significant benefits of extending the life of renewable energy schemes, giving significant weight to using established sites for the repowering and life extension of renewable energy infrastructure. This accords with the Greater Norwich Local Plan Policy 2 and the 2015 Broadland Development Management Policies Document Policy GC5. The solar farm's impacts have already been demonstrated acceptable through the extant planning permission. Other than an extension to the solar farm's operational period, the development and any impacts will remain unchanged. The application is heard today at committee due to comments from Oulton Parish Council and Councillor Riley relating to the perceived loss of best and most versatile agricultural land. Oulton Parish Council referenced a 2022 solar farm planning operation to the south of the site that was refused planning permission due to the loss of BMV agricultural land. We consider the Parish Council's statement to be misleading, as a revised application in the same location has since been approved as per paragraph 522 of the Office's report. Local planning authorities do not need to consult with Natural England on the potential loss of BMV unless it is above 20 hectares. Our client's application would lead to a temporary loss of 17 hectares. A 2021 consented solar farm within the Broadland district at Spixworth Road, Hainford, has planning permission to be operational for a temporary period of 57 years, demonstrating the Council's precedent for granting consent for solar farms with long operational periods. Footnote 62, attached to paragraph 181 of the MPPF, sets out where development of agricultural land is necessary. Areas of poor quality land should be preferred to those of a higher quality. The land that surrounds the application site is shown as being a mix of grade 2 and 3 agricultural land on the National England ALC map. Accordingly, the site adheres to this, as there are no areas of grade 4 or 5 nearby. The landowner has provided analysis on the farm business's yield figures, which have been submitted to the Council and published on their planning portal. As per paragraph 5.7 of the Officer report, the two parcels that form the consented solar farm tend to provide lower than average yields, indicating the soil there is not of the best quality to enable consistently high crop yields to be produced. Accordingly, the on-the-ground farming knowledge seemingly provides a challenge to the land being regarded as best and most versatile for crop growth. Farm diversification is critical to the landowner's business, particularly with the phasing out of the European Union rural grants from the Common Agricultural Policy. The proposed variation of conditions application fully accords with the policies of the adopted local plan and the MPPF and aligns with the aims of the Council's 2023 Climate and Biodiversity Emergency Declaration of July 2023. The operation of the solar farm for an extended period is not considered to result in any additional impacts that would outweigh the significant benefits of generating additional renewable energy, responding directly to the threat of climate change and the need to greatly reduce carbon emissions. In accordance with the 2024 MPPF consultation document, paragraph 164, which states for applications of repowering and life extension of existing renewable sites, significant weight should be ascribed to the benefits of utilising an established site. We respectfully request that the Council support the Officer recommendation and approve this planning application. Thank you.
Thank you for coming to speak. Do any councillors have questions for the speaker?
Could you just clarify, is it only 17 hectares of land that will be used for the solar farm going forward?
Sorry. Yes, that's correct. So the parcels that are indicated in red there, they are 17, I think 17.1 hectares in all.
Do we have any other questions? I have a question. I might not have fully understood it, but I gather that sheep are not being grazed at the moment. Is that correct under the panels? Are there plans?
I believe so. I was speaking with the landowner yesterday, and when they get consent, they're fully open to various livestock grazing on the site. But we have the landowner here if you wish to ask him directly.
Yes, if that's possible to ask, would you be happy to answer? Thank you. Okay, thank you. Any other questions at all? No? Well, thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Copples.
Can I just ask, you talked about farm businesses being diversified because of the change in cap reform and the subsidies coming from Europe. Does the farmer also grow food on the farm, and is this just a small percentage of the land holding?
Again, I can defer to the landowner who's here if that's okay.
Would you be happy to answer? If so, you do have a microphone actually you could use. Yeah, thank you.
The 430 hectares is growing food on the farm. We also have a lot of diversity. We've got the River Bure through the farm, so we already have a lot. We're in stewardship and have been forever, really. We're very interested in the environment. This is this is a very commercial and doesn't reflect the whole holding. This is the sort of commercial end where we've got some commercial premises. I'm very pleased to have a tenant on there at the moment with Orsted. But we're very, very focused on conservation, and we've got lots of livestock on the farm. Historically, they used to be ours. We now have lots of small, little people that businesses rely on us giving them grazing, which we do at really low rents, but with a stewardship payment supporting that. So we've got 4 businesses that rely on us, that are small businesses. The man who grazes the sheep, his wife comes with him with the baby on the back, moving the fence on Sunday. So, they're the sort of people you'd like to help.
So it form a part of the wider farm portfolio.
Thank you for clarifying that. That's helpful. Well, thank you for coming to speak. We now move out of public speaking session into committee session to discuss and determine the application. So, would anyone like to contribute? Councillor Leggett.
It came over very positively to me, and although I was looking at the balances again, it did seem to me very important that we go ahead, and I certainly would approve the application.
Thank you. Councillor Copleston.
Thank you, Chair. This former old RAF Alton site is fairly industrial. I know Hornsey and Vattenfall and Equinor will be using it. Some of them are using it at the moment. We've already approved this application for phase 1 and 2. Yes, I've heard the arguments for producing food, but I am reassured that the applicant is producing a whole lot of food on the 430 hectares. And actually, I think with farm businesses going forward, it's very important to be diversified, and a mixture of food and low carbon energy is a very desirable mix, I feel. So I will be supporting this, and I'm very pleased that this project can go on longer and we have best use of these solar panels. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have comments from any other councillors? Yeah, Councillor Orber.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a few words just to say I think this application is quite different from the last one in that this has already been approved, and so we're just extending the life of it, which, to my mind is better value because it's you're getting more life out of the same amount of equipment. So it's less waste and just seems much more of a sensible application. So yeah, I'm happy to support.
Thank you. Any other comments before we go to the vote? Would anyone like to propose? Yep. Yeah, Councillor Leggett, thank you, is proposing this application. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Copleston, thank you. And all those in favour of approving this application, please raise your hands. Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who came to speak. That application has been approved. if it's acceptable to the committee, I'd just like to move the agenda items now so that we have a look at the appeals section. We just need to note the appeals.
Yep, thank you, Chair. So we move to the appeals that are on pages 67 and 68 of the agenda. These are just for noting now. If any members want to ask any questions after the meeting, then please do. We've received 3 applications in the period referred to there from 6th of July to the 2nd of August. Sorry, 3 appeals. The first one is for a detached garage to the front of a property at Spixworth, 85 Park Road. Second one is an enforcement case, actually, at Posset, Great Oak Equestrian, where we have an appeal against a site that doesn't have planning permission for the material change of use of land to a mixed use for keeping of horses. And then we have a third one, which is at Woodbastwick, a Holly Cottage on Primrose Corner, which is for the refurbishment and alterations of existing house, including various constructions and such like on there. They'll take their time to go through the planning appeal process and we'll report back in the future when we receive a decision. We've received 2 decisions in the period since the last committee as well. Pleasingly, both went in our favour in the respect that the appeals were dismissed. Both were sort of similar in some respects. The first one was in Stratton Strawless, land of Shortthorne Road, for 6 dwellings, and the other one was in Freethorpe, land north of Palmer's Lane, and that was for 8 dwellings, both of which were outside the settlement limit. And even though we didn't have a 5-year supply of housing, the inspector felt that the harms as a result of the development would outweigh that in any case. So, any questions? Happy to answer after the meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And we will now move to the final application on the agenda. Councillor Johnson, I believe you are predetermined on this application, so feel free to leave the meeting. And so we move to the final application on the agenda. That's number 2023/2490, and the site is 331 Drayton High Road, Helsden. And we have 2 planning officers up at the top table today. We have Sarah Everard, Area Manager, and Matthew Blackie, Principal Planning Officer. Thank you.
Just for clarification, I'm actually a senior planning officer, not principal, just for the record. So this is a full planning application. So this is for the erection of a care facility within the use class of C2 with associated landscaping and car parking, and the care facility would have young adults as the residents. And just to confirm that the existing building on site for 331 Drayton High Road would be demolished to allow for the erection of a new building. Just before continuing with the presentation, I'd just like to update the committee that we did receive an objection today. This was received during the planning committee. They had previously raised an objection as part of the application, but they did not comment as part of the latest consultation with the dates that were set out in the officer report. And just to give a summary of their objections, so it follows previous concerns, and these relates to potential noise impact arising from the development, potential impact on wildlife due to the loss of trees, and also there's a new objection over the relocation of the bin storage, further increasing noise impact on the boundary with their property. So here we've got the site location plan. So as you can see, you've got 331 Drayton High Road here, and this is the existing building. And the existing access at present is onto Devon Avenue, which is where my cursor is where the existing access is. As you can see, this is situated within the parish of Helsden, and you've got the A1067, so Drayton High Road, that runs to the west, and you've also got a number of residential and commercial uses within the vicinity. Just to highlight a couple, so 331A is an existing care facility that is run by the applicant at present for the application. And then just to the north here, 323, this is a vet. And then the remaining buildings on Devon Avenue are all residential properties. And just opposite the site, you've got Helston Hospital. And then this is just to give the site in wider context. So the pin here represents 331 Drayton High Road. As you can see, it's in a highly sustainable location. So it is situated on the fringe of Norwich. So down here, you've got the boundary between Norwich City Council and Broadland District Council. So there are a number of services that are located within this area. And there is also there's also good sustainable transport options to be able to access this area, but also the city centre of Norwich, and you can do this via good foot and cycle provisions, and there's also a number of frequent bus services that run along Drayton High Road. And then just sort of bringing it back closer to the area for the site, there's also a number of good services and facilities for residents, staff and any visitors. So here we've got the proposed site block plans. So following negotiations, the application has been subject to amendments. So in terms of the site plan itself, so you've got the proposed building that is here, and you've also got a detached outbuilding that will contain 3 self-contained flats. And just to confirm that there will be 4 bedrooms that are situated within the main building. You've got a shared garden area that is situated here. The bin storage has been relocated to the rear of this site, and you've also got a car parking area with cycle storage and a new proposed access onto Drayton High Road. So here are the proposed elevations for the main building. So this is the front elevation, and this will front onto Drayton High Road, and then this is the rear elevation. This proposed side elevation is when you're looking at it from 331A Drayton High Road, and then this is the outbuilding here, and then this is the side elevations if you were looking at it from Devon Avenue. And so you've got the main building here, and then the detached outbuilding here. So here are the proposed floor plans for the main building. So you've got 2 bedrooms that are situated on the ground floor. You've also got a manager's office and reception, an office area for visitors and staff, and then you've got a number of shared facilities, including a lounge, kitchen, dining area, laundry, and a snug area. And then there are 2 rooms that are habitable within the roof itself. So you've got 2 bedrooms as well. And then here are the proposed floor plans for the outbuilding and the roof plan. So as you can see, you've got 3 self-contained flats here with a bedroom, kitchen and lounge and ensuite. And then this is the proposed street scene. So this is the view from Drayton High Road. So one of the concerns that was raised by officers previously was over development of the site. There was concerns over the height, the bulk and massing of the proposed building. Following amendments and negotiations with the agent, the height of the building has been reduced, and so it will now sit at the same height as other buildings, including the adjacent site. So officers feel that the main building now better integrates into the street scene. You can see here from the dashed lines that this is the existing building. So whilst officers do acknowledge that there will be an increase in height from the existing to the proposed, given the fact that this proposed height is the established height along Drayton High Road, officers are satisfied with the integration of the building into the site itself. So just a couple of pictures. So this is the front elevation of the existing building. This is the rear elevation, and as you can see, this is looking onto 331A Drayton High Road. This is the view looking down Devon Avenue from Drayton High Road. And then this is the view looking up Devon Avenue onto Drayton High Road. And then, as you can see, the proposed access is the existing access is situated here. And then this is a view looking from Drayton High Road itself onto the site. So back to the proposed site plan. So just to run through some other concerns that were raised. So the first one was regarding the potential loss of trees. So we have spoken to the tree officer. So at present, there are a number of trees on site. The tree officer is satisfied with the submitted arboricultural impact assessment. It's considered that the trees on site have little value. They are either categorised as C or U, and so the loss of these trees is not resisted, and there is going to be an associated landscaping scheme to help mitigate for the loss. At the moment, there are no specific details of the landscaping scheme, and we have recommended a condition for these details to be submitted if the application were to be approved. The next concern that has been raised was over impact on highways. So the Highways Authority have raised no objection to the scheme subject to conditions, and as officers we are satisfied that given the location of the site being in a sustainable location with a number of sustainable transport options, we've got no objections from a highways perspective. And then finally, just to comment on the concern regarding impact on amenity. So the concerns relate to the fact that there is an existing care facility at present, and then there'd be the introduction of a new care facility. So environmental health were consulted, and they have raised no objections subject to conditions. As officers, we are satisfied that the introduction of this care facility would not raise substantial harm on amenity, given that there are trained staff on site that will be present on site 24 hours a day. And so for this reason, we feel that the concerns can be alleviated through a noise management plan, which has been recommended for a condition. And then just a final point to note, there is a high demand at this current moment for C2 uses. So the strategic housing market assessment in 2017 showed that there was a provision for 634 C2 beds across Norfolk, and at present there is a shortfall. So there's more than 100 people at this moment currently awaiting for this type of accommodation, with many residents who are actually located outside of Norfolk, given a result of the shortfall of the number of beds. And so for this reason, officers are satisfied that the introduction of this use within the area would not have a detrimental harm to existing residents, and also the benefit outweighs any potential harm that arises. Just to conclude, officers are recommending approval for the application, and we are seeking to delegate authority to the Assistant Director for Planning regarding conditions, GI RAMs, and also nutrient neutrality, which is still to be agreed. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Have any committee members got questions for the officer? Councillor Cobb.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm just slightly worried about the amount of parking facilities there are at the front, because obviously there's several flats here and there'll be staff coming and going, and I saw the shift patterns and things like that. Is there adequate parking on site, do you feel?
Yeah, so the matter of parking provisions was assessed by Norfolk County Council Highways. In their response, they did acknowledge that there was a slight shortfall in terms of the parking provision itself, and this has been set out in the officer report. As officers, we are satisfied that there is enough parking for visitors and staffing. So at present, there are 7 parking spaces that are proposed. We consider against adopted parking provisions by Norfolk County Council Highways, there would be a need for 8 parking spaces. And so whilst it's acknowledged that there is a shortfall of 1 parking space, given the fact that there is cycle provision, there is going to be a cycle storage, and the sustainability of the location with public transport, but also opportunities for walking as well, we do consider that this one shortfall in parking can be alleviated due to the other matters that have just been discussed.
Thank you, Councillor Orber.
Thank you, Chair. What sort of people are going to be using this? You mentioned C2. That means nothing to me. So can you just, in Simpleman's terms, who's going to be using it? How long will they be there for? What's the purpose of it? This might be a more appropriate question for the next person, but I don't know. Maybe you could answer it.
Yeah, that's fine. So, as set out in the description, it's going to be for young adults. So these are people who have learning difficulties and need supported care and living accommodation. So that's why. So that's what C2 means. So it's like a residential care facility for people with these types of needs. The agent will be able to set out more potentially how long the residents could be occupants, how long they could occupy these rooms for, but that in a nutshell is who will be occupants.
And would it be reasonable to expect that they would not be driving cars themselves?
Yes, I think it's probably reasonable to expect that residents wouldn't be driving. I think I just set out, I think there's different types of accommodation provided on the site, so you do have those separate flats to recognise that there's some need for certain individuals to have that slightly more of their own space, and there's also within the main building there is 4 bedrooms within the building with a bit more shared communal space, so it's trying to meet as many needs as possible, which is reflected through what Norfolk County Council has set out in terms of the needs that they have for this type of development at the moment. So it is really trying to meet that need that we do have.
Thank you. Any other questions for the officer? No, so we will move now into the public speaking session, and we have John Benson to come to speak to us. Thank you for coming. You have 5 minutes to speak. I'll let you know when you've got 1 minute left, and if you could introduce yourself.
I'm John Benson, planning consultant. We have a recommendation for approval today, and I would like to thank Matthew and the team for working with us in a proactive manner, which is really refreshing from our side. The application site, as said, comprises a hip roof bungalow of limited aesthetic value on the junction with Devon Avenue. The property, a future small care home subject to planning, would be occupied by Cascade, who would be the end care provider. It is important to explain to members who the operator and occupants will be. Cascade supports people living with autism and learning difficulties along their road to greater independence. The facility would be occupied by young adults. Many of the residents would continue with college studies on a full or part-time basis, with further enhanced support provided by staff, leading to a more independent life. The property would have no more than 7 occupants, and it would be staffed 24 hours a day by specialist carers on a shift pattern, but none of them would live at the property. All residents would be able-bodied with no mobility impairments, but none of them would have access to cars or private means of transport. The approach by Cascade is that vulnerable people should receive safe, appropriate, high-quality care with the emphasis on health, education, community and really high-quality living. They support the progression of residents to a more independent life and underpin the delivery of care they receive each day. This isn't a speculative development, members, but Cascade is a major care provider in the Anglia region. Rowan Dyson Care Commission, Norfolk County Council, supports the proposal and has worked closely with us throughout the planning process. Rowan confirms that the council is seeing a significant demand in the system for the type of service that Cascade provide, with high quality care and support provided in a really modern environment that support an individual's sensory needs. At present, Norfolk County Council have over 100 people with learning disability or autism waiting for new accommodation. The council have seen over 60 beds lost in the past year due to provider failure, and 50 young people with complex needs transitioning from children to adult services each year. Sadly, many of these people are currently placed in specialist educational provision outside of the Anglia region, away from their families and friends. And we believe that the council have a duty to support these people to return to the area, and it's only with support of providers such as Cascade opening new services that will allow the council to meet this level of need. From an architectural perspective, the scheme proposals which have been modified, as said, we believe are not discordant or alien to the surrounding area, and we believe that it would assimilate with ease. This proposal also represents a real opportunity, we believe, to raise the architectural merit in the area. The design approach and ethos from us is not to create a true two-storey property, but essentially a 1.5-storey dormer bungalow with first floor accommodation, and the single-storey element to the rear, which is similar in scale and orientation to next stories, is no more dominant than other properties. Comparing the scale of the proposal to the adjacent care home, the proposal has a built ratio on site of 36.6%, and the adjacent is 26.8%, which we believe shows consistency. The key aspects of residential amenity which need to be assessed, such as overlooking, loss of light, enclosure, etc., have all been assessed, and we believe that none of the residents on Devon Avenue would be adversely affected. There have been a small number of objections, but we believe with the amendments that we've done address any concerns. The Care Quality,
You have 1 minute left.
The Care Quality Commission, who inspects such facilities, assess that they provide good care, are effective, are caring and are responsive and well led. Most scores range from good to outstanding for Cascade care homes. Members, to sum up, there is a significant shortfall of this kind of accommodation in the area, which has only been reaffirmed by the County Council's position. Having people move to various parts of the country to obtain the level of necessary care is simply unacceptable and causes untold problems on individuals and families. Approving this scheme today will undoubtedly have wide-ranging benefits for many young people, and we hope that you will support us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for coming to speak. Have we any questions? Yes,
Thank you, Chair. John, how long are these young adults expected to stay in this facility, please?
It's essentially, I hate the word halfway house. That's a horrible term, but it's the care provider give them support. So it could be any length of time, but from experience with the care homes in East Yorkshire, from where I'm from, it's generally months, a number of months, probably up to a year. And when they're really on their feet, then Cascade will help them find their own place, essentially. So I would say no more than 12 months.
Any other questions? I just have a question about the building. Do you know if there'll be any energy efficiency improvements made to the building?
I think with Cascade they are quite with their builds. I know they do integrate energy efficiency into the build. With regards to solar and things like that, I mean, I have been instructed potentially that could be something that could be integrated in into the scheme. But I think the development, like any, will be just developed with modern construction methods. But we would be open to any suggestions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? Thank you for coming to speak. We now move into discussion. Would anyone like to make any comments? Councillor Alber.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's probably fair to say that it's come across well that there's a need for this type of accommodation. I feel like it's in a great location opposite the hospital, next to a care home, and there's the vets. There's other buildings around it that are similar but different. I don't know if this is superfluous, but should we be adding a condition on the proposal for no further development of the site? Could we limit that, because it is? I note that it is quite a compact site and there's quite a lot going on, and I can't imagine that we'd want to have any further development.
Do we have an answer from the planning officer?
I'm happy to answer. We can add it as a condition, but we could restrict permitted development rights. But we would also receive any other applications into the planning team anyway to consider. I sometimes think it's a bit unnecessary to add a condition such as that when there might be just minor things they might want to change as part of it.
So, I mean, that was my question. So I feel like I'm perfectly happy to accept this proposal then. I think it's a need, it definitely satisfies a need, it's in a great location, so it is a busy road on that Drayton High Road, and, you know, adding a little, I mean, the traffic there is queued up quite well past that place, so in terms of getting out and access, that will be an issue, but it's not adding a huge number of vehicles, so I'm happy to support it.
And
Yes, thank you. So we have a proposer. Councillor Orber has proposed that we approve, and Councillor Leggett has seconded that. Have we got any other comments at all? No, I mean, I'd agree. I think it's good to see it brings a bungalow that's not been occupied back into use for a very good purpose. There's a real, obviously, from what we've heard, a real need for specialist housing such as this. And it's good to see the original plans have been altered, and work's been done with the planning officers to make the design acceptable. It matches the adjacent neighbouring property, which is really good, and there'll be a noise management plan, and also employment, of course, will come as a result of this, and it's a good sustainable location, so I'm happy to support it too. So if we have no other comments for the discussion, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour, raise their hands. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you to everyone for attending. It's been